What's going on, everyone? It's Ben back with another Critter format video, and this video is going to be a bit of a throwback to Yugi-Kaiba, in that we're covering one of the most popular jank decks of that format, Dragons. Now, the deck in Yugi-Kaiba, while fun, was a bit of a pipe dream, and so I don't think it's very good, but luckily in Critter format it actually gets some tools to help it out a bit. Whether that makes it good or not, we'll have to see. But it does make the deck function a bit better in my opinion. But before we dive into the deck breakdown, if you like this sort of content covering these very old formats like Critter and Yugi-Kaiba, then please consider subscribing to the channel. We're probably actually almost done with my main coverage of Critter format. This doesn't mean that I'll never cover it again, but it means that I'm nearing the end of the sort of deck types that I'm going to cover in the format, and we'll be moving on to the next format. So get excited for that if you're interested in it, and if you want to be kept up to date on those videos, then definitely subscribe. And if you like this video, as always, please give it a like. But with that out of the way, let's dive in to Dragons. So the main goal of this deck is to basically OTK your opponent, using things like Lord of D to bring out a bunch of blue eyes when you have Flute Summoning Dragon. Now, in Yugi-Kaiba, all three parts of this combo were pretty much unsearchable. Yes, you had Last Will, but that was a bit conditional, and this made it very hard to actually pull everything together. If you did manage to get everything together, then it was pretty good, but if you didn't, it was very, very rough. In Critter, though, we actually do get tools that enable us to search out the Lord of D in the form of Sangan and Witch, which make the deck a bit more consistent in my opinion. It also means that I feel like we really only have to play one Lord of D, as it's so easily searchable. You could play two just to dodge around Trap Hole or something, but realistically you should be going for the OTK when you've already got ways to deal with your opponent's back row and can have a clear path forward. Won't always be the case. Sometimes you'll have to just hope they don't have a Trap Hole or a Mirror Force or something. But most of the time, you're trying to get it so that you only really need the one Lord of D. So we're only playing one so we can fit in some more better cards in the deck. And for our Dragon package, we're only playing 3 Blue Eyes. You could play Curse of Dragon, as it is searchable by Witch the Black Forest if you really do need a dragon to hand. And also can pair well with Change of Heart. But given that things like Jirai Gumo are in this format, which has a lot less strings attached to it to bring out, and also monsters like Giant Soldier Stone still exist, so your opponent could be setting them, I feel like it doesn't really do as much in the deck as I'd like it to, but it's definitely something that you can experiment with if you want to play the deck on your own. And here we're playing 2 flutes just because I don't really want to play 3, as it is kind of bricky. But you also want to draw this at some point over the course of the game, so playing it as a one-of isn't the best either. So that's why we have 2. Maybe not the most concrete mathematical reasoning, but it's what we're going with. For the other monsters in the lineup, we have 3 Lodgin, 1 7-colored fish to get pretty aggressive here. We want to use up our opponent's major traps like Trap Hole and Mirror Force before we actually go for our big dragon push, and these can help do that. We also have 2 Muka Muka to also keep up some aggression. With things like Blue Eyes and Flutes, your hand is likely going to be filled with bricks anyways, so Muka Muka can benefit from that. We also have a 1-of Mass Sorcerer. This is great to search out with Sangan and Witch when you need that extra drawing power to draw into the pieces of your combo. And lastly, we're playing 1 Cannon Soldier. This could be great to deal the last bit of damage to your opponent if they're still alive after you make the big dragon push. Also, if you're able to bring out the field of dragons and Lord of D, you can tribute them all away for a Cannon Soldier, as its effect does not target, so you can actually tribute your dragons for it. Moving on to the spell cards, we of course have the Power 5 limited spells, Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed, and Raigeki, all incredibly good. We also have a card destruction. This can be good if you're really, really bricked on your dragons or like a flute or something like that. It can be very nice in that regard. Also, you can combo it with the Blue Eyes and a Monster Reborn. If you have Reborn, Card Destruction, and Blue Eyes in hand, you can set the Monster Reborn, Card Destruction, Reborn back the Blue Eyes. Just a way to get a lot of aggressive power on the board if you need it. We're also playing 3 Fisher to act as removal to get even more aggressive. We're playing 2 heavy to clear away our opponent's back row, which can be very good when you're making the big Lord of D dragon push. We're playing 2 Swords Revealing Light to stall our opponent and buy us the time that we need to draw into the pieces of our combo, and of course the 2 flutes that I mentioned earlier. For the traps, we're of course on a Mirror Force, crazy card in this format, incredibly good. We're on 3 Trap Hole to act as more removal, 3 Wuboku to protect our monsters and our life points, and we are also on 2 7 Tools of the Bandit. Now, I considered maybe adding a third and going up to 41 cards, but given how tough it is to draw into all the pieces of your combo at 40 cards, I don't want to increase the difficulty of that even a little bit by going up to 41. So we're only playing 2 of these. Maybe you could swap out something like a Trap Hole for a 7 Tools, but 7 Tools is very nice for when you're going for the combo, just being able to stop your opponents like Wubokus or things like that. It's also nice if you have a 7 Tools set and activate heavy, your opponent chains Wuboku to it, you chain 7 Tools. It can be very powerful. So 7 Tools is great for going for the OTK, and maybe in future variations I will try to fit in the 3rd copy, as, you know, in the games that I played with it, I really did miss it when I wanted it. But that's going to do it for the main deck. For the side deck, we have 3 Jiraigumo if we want to go a bit more aggressive with our level 4 beaters. We have 3 Man-Eater Bug if we need more removal. We have 3 Giant Soldier Stone if we want to go more on the defensive. And we have a Solemn just for added flexibility here. I think maybe in the future I'd switch this to a 3rd 7 Tools, or if I've got the 3rd 7 Tools in the deck, switch it to like a Trap Hole or something. But it's here now. I'd probably cut it in the future. I also have 2 Last Wills. I think I might cut this in the future as well, just because I don't really think there's a deck that I'd swap it in against. This was more when I was experimenting with the deck, seeing if Last Will helped at all, and I don't think that it's really worth playing. And lastly, we have 3 Magician of Faith. These are good if your opponent is playing like card destructions or something in the deck. You can bring in Magician of Faith to ensure that you can get back some flutes. It's also a very good card, so if you find yourself not needing certain parts of your package in a given matchup, then it can be good in that regard as well. And we have like a little fusion deck here just for mind games. It's unnecessary. But that's the deck. Now that we've gone through exactly how it works, let's see how it plays in some games. Okay, we've got some games against Air Falco here again. Again, very active duels in the format. Always a pleasure to have them on the channel. They always play very interesting decks. So let's see what they're on today. They will win the rock, paper, scissors, so they're going to go first here. And let's see what our opening hand looks like. Okay, no pieces of our combo yet, but Sangan is nice to see. They're just going to set one and pass. You know, we're just going to set one. We'll set a Trap Hole, might as well, and just pass back to them. They are going to discard Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons from deck to hand. And they're going to Heavy Storm our Trap Hole. I mean, that's okay, you know, 1-for-1 removal. They're going to Swords, see that we've got a Sangan set. Tribute the Sangan for a Thunder Dragon. And then they're going to activate Last Will. Uh-oh, this is getting a bit worrying. Luckily, they're going to bring out a Witch. I was really worried that they'd have like a Mass Sorcerer or something. But this is okay. You know, we lose 1,600, but honestly not the worst. We'll think about what to get with the Sangan, and we're just going to get another Witch. This way we can search a beater to potentially beat over the Thunder Dragon after the Swords is gone. And we draw Muka Muka. That's a really great draw. We could just set the Muka Muka here, as with 5 cards in hand, it will have 1,800 defense, and so they won't be able to get over it with a Thunder Dragon. So I think that is what we're going to do. We're just going to set it, pass back to them. And they're going to attack into it with the Thunder Dragon, take 200, and switch the Witch to defense, set 1, pass back to us. Lord of D is okay for later. It doesn't really do much right now, but I guess we can keep it in hand for the Muka Muka. We're going to switch Muka Muka to attack, set 1, and we could have probably set a like Wuboku or something just in case they did have a Raigeki, but we figure we want to keep the Muka Muka at 21 in case they do try to crash. So, I mean, I guess if they tried to crash, the Wuboku would also be nice in that situation, but we didn't think of it at the time, and they're going to Pot of Greed. Let's see what they do now. They're going to Raigeki, so unfortunately we will be taking a fair amount of damage here, but luckily we'll be able to search with Witch, get a Witch to hand, and they're going to attack in for 27. So maybe I should have set the Wuboku and not risked this sort of thing. But honestly, I'm not sure if I'd even activate the Wuboku with 2700 damage. It might be worth to save it. Reborn is interesting. We could reborn back a Muka Muka to act as a wall if we so choose. But it looks like we're just going to set the Witch, set the Wuboku, pass back to them. And they're just going to attack over the Witch. We will search out a beater. And now their Witch is going to attack directly. We're going to take that as well. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw swords of our own, which is pretty nice. We're just going to bring out the Lodgin here, attack into the Thunder Dragon. They're going to take two. Main phase 2, we're just going to set a 7 tools to deal with whatever traps they may have. They're going to bring out a Lodgin. Try attacking in to our Lodgin. We do have Wuboku for that. They've got Wuboku as well. They're going to set one, switch Witch to defense, pass back to us. Cannon Soldier's an okay draw, but not really right now. We're going to attack into the Witch, and they're going to add a Witch to hand. Main phase 2, I was initially planning on fissuring their Lodgin, but honestly I forget, so I just set a trap hole and pass back to them. Hopefully that won't end up mattering, as they will likely have to crash into our Lodgin. They probably would have just fissured it last turn if they had a fissure, so hopefully they don't have a fissure now. And they're going to bring out Witch. We are okay with that. We could have trap hold it if we are worried about the fissure, but we've got the read that they don't have a fissure. Unfortunately, they do have a fissure, so that will be the end of the game. Maybe we could have won that one if I had my head in the game a bit more and it just fissured the Lodgin. But, I mean, we were at pretty low life points. We did have a reborn, so I don't know. Who's to say what would have happened if we had played that a little bit better? But that's always a lesson to always try and play at the top of your game, especially when you're playing a jank deck, which really needs all the help it can get. But that was game 1. Game 2, we will be able to go first. And let's see how we do here. Okay, this is a pretty good opener. We can just set the Muka Muka and pass. There's nothing we really want to set here. So, yeah, we're just going to do this. They're going to bring out a Witch and attack into our set. It's just a Muka Muka, so they will take some damage there. They're going to fissure away our Muka Muka. Makes sense. They're going to set one, pass back to us. Reborn is pretty nice. We could reborn the Muka here, but I don't think we need to. We're just going to set a Witch, pass back to them. And they're going to discard Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand. Bring out a Muka Muka of their own, and that's perfectly fine by us. We will Witch, get a Lodge in here, and attack. They'll attack in with Witch. We'll take 11. Pass back to us. And we could just summon out the Lodgin, attack the Witch. But the thing is, then the Lodgin loses to the Muka Muka next turn because they'll draw. We could also Swords here, but I think we can afford to get a bit aggressive as we do have a Raigeki in hand in addition to the Dark Hole. So we are just going to Dark Hole the board away. They will get a search with Witch, which isn't the best for us. But we will be able to bring out Lodgin, attack in for 18, which is not bad. And main phase 2 will just set a 7 tools, pass back to them. They're going to Heavy Storm the 7 tools. That's perfectly fine. Wasn't really doing anything on this board anyways. They're going to reborn back the Muka Muka and attack into our Lodgin. We'll take 300. Kind of unfortunate. They'll bring out a Witch, pass back to us. We don't really have any way to press the offensive here, so we're just going to set a Sengan, activate Swords. If they want to use up the other Heavy in their deck on it, then that's perfectly fine by us. They're going to switch Witch to defense. We draw Heavy, which doesn't really do anything here, but could be good for later. And they're just going to set another, pass back to us. If that is a Magician of Faith, that's pretty bad for us. So I think we are going to just Raigeki the board out of an abundance of caution. A bit risky if it is a Recruiter, but unfortunately for us, it is a Recruiter. They're going to get 2 searches here, and they reveal that they're on Dark Elf, which is very interesting. Seems like they're on a bit of a beatdown strategy here. We're going to flip up the Sengan, attack in for 1,000, pass back to them. We could have maybe reborned a Lodgin to get them down even further, but that plays a bit too much into board clears for my liking. I mean, I guess Sengan could then search us a card, but I think we want to save the reborn for a more powerful monster as well. They're just going to set one, set another, pass back to us. We draw Mirror Force, which is very nice. We are going to think about this. We could try and get aggressive here with the reborn, but we don't really feel the need to. We're just going to set the Mirror Force pass back to them. And let's see what they do here. They're just going to flip up a Sangan of their own, summon out Dark Elf, and that's perfectly fine by us. They'll attack into our Sangan. We'll let the Sangan die, so that way we can get a Witch to hand. And then they're going to try attacking directly with the Dark Elf. They will pay 1,000, and we will Mirror Force their board away. So we're feeling pretty good about that. They will get a search here, but honestly, we're not too torn up about that. And they're going to activate Swords, pass back to us. That's perfectly fine because we've got the Heavy in hand. So we'll just activate that Heavy. Get rid of their Dark Hole, which is very nice to see. Summon out Login and then Reborn. And we've got many targets that can do this from this position. So that will just be the end of the game. So we did manage to win Game 2. Note that in both Game 1 and Game 2, the Dragon parts of the deck didn't really come up. We drew Lord of D Game 1. We drew Blue Eyes Game 2. But we mainly lost and won those games not on the merits of the Dragon strategy, but more on the merits of the rest of the deck instead. So let's hope that Game 3 we can actually get a bit of the Dragon strategy to show itself here. We are going second, as we did lose that, or as we did win that second game. They're just going to set 2, pass back to us. This is an interesting hand here. We're just going to bring out Cannon Soldier and try and attack in. We don't really feel the need to change card destruction yet. We could have changed of Hearted their set and then treated it off with Cannon Soldier, but honestly I didn't really feel the need to, as we can just do that with whatever else they have set next turn. We're going to Swords, pass back to them. They're going to Thunder Dragon here, get 2 Thunder Dragons to hand. And they're just going to bring out Login, set 1, pass back to us. That's perfectly fine. We could change of Heart Login and just get in for a ton of damage. And it looks like we're not going to do that. We're just going to Fisher away their Login, attack in for 14, and just pass back to them. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Reborn, which is pretty nice. We could get super aggressive here. Change of Hearting, they're set. And it looks like we are going to do that. We're going to flip up the Muka Muka. That Muka Muka is 1,800. We could Reborn something else here. We could also switch the Cannon Soldier to defense to play around Mirror Force a bit. But honestly, we're not too worried about Mirror Force. If they do Mirror Force, they're losing one of their own monsters as well as one of ours. We do have Reborn to get back a monster later. So we're just going to go for this. If they do use Mirror Force on it, at least they've wasted the Mirror Force, and they did use the Mirror Force. So they won't have that in the deck for later. That's very good for if we make a Dragon push later on. They're going to bring out Dark Elf, pass back to us. That's perfectly fine. We draw another Swords, and honestly, we might want to activate it here. We don't really want a card destruction, given that we have some very good cards in hand. So we are just going to Swords. They're just going to pass back to us. That's fine. We draw 7 tools. We don't really need to set it yet, as we're not making any pushes, and we're not too worried about their back row. They're going to set 1 of their own. We draw a Flute, which could be good for later. We're going to set the 7 tools, pass back to them. And they're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Raigeki, which is pretty nice. We could Raigeki their board away, and then Reborn back a Beater to attack in. It's a bit iffy. We are going to Reborn here, target Muka Muka. And it looks like we might Raigeki this. Oh, I guess we're just going to clear the Dark Elf this way. This makes sense too. If they have a Woboku and they want to use it here, then we can just Raigeki their board away after. And it looks like they do have the Woboku. We could have 7 tools to that, but honestly there's not really much need to. We're just going to pass back to them. I think this is a little bit risky, but I guess it forces them to use removal. Yeah, they do use removal. They will activate Robin here, and I think we do have to 7 tools that. Kind of unfortunate. They know that we don't have any back row now, so they can get super aggressive if they want to. But it looks like they're just going to attack in with the Dark Elf. They'll take 1,000 for that. Set 1, pass back to us. And Blue Eyes is okay for later, but I'm kind of sad we used up our Reborn now, because it would have been really good to Raigeki, Reborn the Blue Eyes, get in for damage that way. I think that we do just Dark Hole this board away. Yep, and that was a good decision, I think. We're going to set the Flute as a bit of a bluff, as, you know, if they do heavy the Flute away, we're not too torn up about that. It does reveal that we're on the dragon strategy, and if we do draw like a Lord of D or a way into Lord of D, then it's kind of sad if we lose the flute. But I think that this is fine as a bluff. They probably aren't going to heavy an empty board. We're just going to set the giant soldier. I think it's a bit aggressive to summon it in attack, as we don't have any way to protect the giant soldier here. So we're just going to set it. They're going to swords, flip up the giant soldier, pass back to us. Heavy is okay, but not really right now. We don't really want to get rid of our flute. Kind of unfortunate. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw trap hole. We might want to set the trap hole, honestly. We will set the trap hole. If their first set is a heavy, that's kind of bad for us, but they're going to set another, so it's unlikely it is. We draw a mirror force. We could just set that as well, but we're not going to. They reveal that their new set is a heavy, so I'm very glad we didn't actually set the mirror force as well. They're going to flip up a witch, summon out a Lodgin, fisher away our giant soldier, and they will be able to get in for a fair amount of damage here. 2,900 will drop us all the way down to 2,100, and we're in a bit of danger here. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw a Muka, which is very nice. We could heavy storm beforehand to make sure the Muka actually sticks to the landing. And it looks like we are going to do that. We just lost a 7 tools on their part. So, not the best. We're going to attack into the Lodgin and then just set a Mirror Force, pass back to them. Maybe we should have attacked into the Witch, and then their Lodgin would have died from the Mirror Force if they attacked in that way. And, you know, they wouldn't have gotten a plus off of that. But they're just going to Dark Hole the board and grab a Muka Muka of their own. It's kind of rough. They're going to summon out the Muka Muka. That's fine by us. And they will Pot of Greed. And this is really good ordering on their part, because if we did have a trap hole, we're like, well, the Muka Muka is only at 1,800, we can let it live. This would actually be the end of the game, because now it's at 21. But they're going to attack in, and we don't have a trap hole, we have a Mirror Force, so we will use the Mirror Force there. They're going to activate swords. We draw a Witch, which is a pretty good draw for this situation. We'll set the Witch, set a Fisher as a bluff, pass back to them. They're going to set one of their own, pass back to us. We draw Lodgin, no real need to use it now. We check their graveyard to see what they've used up, to see if they've gone through all their recruiters, and they have not. They've only gone through 2 witches, so there's no real need to Raigeki their board away yet. We're just going to pass back to them, and they're going to flip up a Magician of Faith, likely get back a... Oh, okay, they're getting back Pot of Greed. Yep, makes sense. And they're going to Pot of Greed. Honestly, we're getting to the point where card destructioning them out of the game is not unrealistic. If they get low enough in their deck and have enough cards in hand, then the card destruction could just wrap things up. They're going to bring out a Lodgin and Raigeki away our set, so that will actually be the end of the game here, as we are not playing Karibo, and this is 2,100 points of damage. So maybe we should have card destructioned earlier. Maybe we should have Raigeki'd earlier. Who knows what we would have gotten if we had done that. But I think that we did pretty good in this game. They had a lot of cards in hand, and 2 of which were Thunder Dragons that we knew about. So they would have gotten a fair amount of value off our card destruction, I think. And honestly, we had pretty decent cards in our hand throughout most of the game. So I think I'm fine with how I played this third one, but it's definitely up for debate. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to see the Dragon deck pop off in this game. We did have Flute and Blue Eyes in hand for a while, but we couldn't draw a way to search out the Lord of D. So, unfortunately, we didn't get to pull that combo off. But we did play an additional match after this, so let's see if we're able to pop off with the Dragon deck in that game. Okay, we've got another match against Air Falco here. This is the immediate rematch, so they do know that we're on Dragons, and we know that they've got a deck that plays Dark Elf and Muka Mukas and the like. So we both know a bit about each other's deck, but honestly I don't think that matters too much. Let's see how the games go. They will win the rock, paper, scissors, so they are going to be able to go first here. Let's see how our hand is. We draw Flute first, then... Oh wow, this is actually a really good hand. We have ways to get the combo online, like basically from the second turn, and we have a 7 tools to stop something like Oboku. That is really nice. Wow. We draw swords. we're just going to set the Sangan, set the 7 tools pass, maybe set up for a Lord of D play next turn if we want it. They're going to bring out Cannon Soldier, and they're not going to use priority on it. But they're going to think, and they're just going to attack into our set here. We could bring out Lord of D with the Sangan, just go for the play right away. It could be pretty decent, but if they've got a board clear, that would be pretty bad for us, as we can't really get too aggressive on this board. So I think we are just going to think about it for a bit and just grab another Sangan. We can afford to bide our time, as we have the combo so easily online now. So they're going to Last Will and Cannon Soldier away their Cannon Soldier. We'll take 5 from that. They'll bring out a Witch and pass back to us. And they know that we've searched a Sangan here. So we're going to set the Witch. And the reason for this is they might just switch the Witch to attack into our set. And it's a Witch, so they can't actually get over it. So we'll just pass back to them. They're going to switch the Witch to attack into our set, and they will not be able to get over it because it is our Witch. They're going to set another pass back to us. And we can't really go for the Dragon combo yet because they've got so many monsters on board. We're just going to set a Sangan, pass back to them. They're going to attack into the Sangan, of course. We're going to search out another Witch. We don't need to get the Lord of D combo online just yet. And they're going to pass back to us. Heavy is okay. We'll set the Witch, pass back to them. We really need a board clear here to make this board as good as possible. But they're going to bring out a Lodgin and just attack into our set with the Lodgin. It's a Witch, so we'll be able to grab a Muka here. And main phase 2, they're just going to pass back to us. We are going to bring out Muka. That's fine by them. We're just going to attack into their Lodgin with the Muka. And they'll take 900 as the Muka is really beefy here. Main phase 2, we've got a set as we're at 7 cards in hand. So the only other thing we could do there is really to discard. So we're just going to set the Trap Hole, pass back to them. They're going to pass back to us. We draw another Trap Hole. And we got to think here because we've got to use up one of our spells or traps at the end of the turn anyways. So it's kind of iffy which one we got to use. And I think we've got to decide now. Because if we want to use up the swords, then actually activating the swords could be pretty good here. We'd be able to potentially attack into 2 of their monsters using the Witch if one of their defenses is weak enough. So I think we are going to do that. We do have another swords in hand if they do have the heavy. But we kind of got to make this play because we've got to discard at the end of the turn anyways. So they're going to search out a Faith with the Sangan. They're going to search out a Thunder Dragon with the Witch. And now they've got a pretty big hand here. We're going to pass back to them if they have heavy. That's unfortunate, but there's no real way we could play around heavy here. Unfortunately, they do have heavy, so we are going to lose our whole back row there, but nothing we can really do. They're going to add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand, summon out a Muka Muka, and now their Muka Muka is much bigger than ours, so they'll attack into our Muka Muka. We'll take 6, and main phase 2, they're just going to activate card destruction here. No, we were so close to the combo. Maybe we should have gone for it earlier, but I think that this was fine. I think that we had to bide our time. We didn't know that they were on card destruction, and you know, we got punished for not playing around it, but kind of had to do what we had to do. That's interesting, actually. This is actually a very good hand here. We could just Dark Hole the board away next turn. We could Reborn out a Blue Eyes, honestly. Go for a ton of damage. It's kind of iffy. We checked their graveyard. They haven't used up any traps yet, so that set card could be any of the traps they've got. We're going to go for Dark Hole, though. Search out something with our Witch. Let's see what we get. We see that they get a Dark Elf. We're going to get a Lord of D because we've got no recruiters left in deck, so there's no other way to find it easily. I think that makes sense. We still do have 1 Flute left in deck, so if we do draw the Flute and get the combo online, that'd be very nice. We're going to bring out a Mass Sorcerer here. Maybe we should have brought out a bigger Beater, as that would have been able to get in a bit more damage here, and made a big damage push later, more likely. But we chose to go for the draw, as we don't really have any reactive traps to use against them here. Unfortunately, we don't draw another, but we do draw heavy, so that could be good for later. They're going to bring out a Dark Elf, and they're going to think about this, see what we've used up, and they're just going to go for it. They're going to attack in to the Mass Sorcerer. We'll take 11, but they take 1,000, so honestly not the worst trade in the world. They're going to set one, pass back to us. The Fisher that we have in hand is pretty nice. We are going to heavy away their back row, and it's revealed that they do have Waboku, so they will chain it. Honestly, is there much of a reason to Fisher away their Dark Elf this turn? We don't really see one, so we're just going to set the 7-colored fish here, set the Fisher as a bluff, pass back to them. If we can keep getting them to whittle down their life points with the Dark Elf attacks, then we're feeling pretty good about that. Maybe we should have Fishered away their Dark Elf just in case they had another monster here to get in for a bit more damage, but we're at 5,800, so I don't think we're at risk of death anytime soon. They're going to Raigeki away our 7-colored fish, and that's a bit worrying for us. We'll take 2,000, dropping down to 3,800, which is a bit risky, and they're going to activate swords. That's very rough for us, as we don't really have a way to deal with that. They're going to set one, pass back to us. I think we definitely have to Fisher the Dark Elf here, and we do Fisher the Dark Elf. Now, we could potentially Reborn out our Blue Eyes White Dragon in case they have a Reborn of our own, because if they do have a Reborn of their own, then Reborning out the Blue Eyes could be devastating for us, and we don't have any traps to react to it. But we choose not to. We just set the Lord of D, set a Reborn, and pass back to them. Maybe this was a bit of a mistake, but they do have the Dark Hole anyways, so even if we did a Reborn, the Blue Eyes, it wouldn't have mattered here. They're going to bring out a Muka Muka. That is at 1,500, pretty rough. And they're going to Reborn out our Blue Eyes. So unfortunately, that will be the end of the game, as the Muka Muka does have 1,200 attack. So maybe I should have gone for the Dragon combo a bit earlier that game, as we did have access to it pretty early on. But I didn't really feel there was a need to go for it that early, because I didn't think that they had card destruction. If they didn't have card destruction, then I think we would have been in a very good position for later on. And their board was filled with monsters, so we wouldn't have been able to get too much damage in. I didn't want to play into any board clears, but maybe I should have just gone for it. Who's to say? Either way, I think that the first game does show that the recruiters really do increase the consistency of being able to get the combo online, as even though we didn't pull it off, we did have access to it. So let's see if we're able to get that access in game 2 as well. We are going to go first here, and we do have a dragon in hand, which is pretty nice. We're just going to set the Lodge, set a trap hole, pass back to them. If they bring out a beater of their own, we can trap hole it. But it looks like they're just going to set 2 and pass. We draw a Cannon Soldier, which is nice for later. We'll flip up the Lodge, and that'll be fine by them. And we'll just attack in here. We don't really want to play into Mirror Force. And, you know, we deal 1,800. We're going to set a Waboku in case they bring out a Lodge of their own, potentially. They're going to activate Robin Goblin. Can't do anything about that. They're going to Change of Heart our Lodgin, and this is pretty rough. We are going to activate Waboku here, but they do have these 7 tools, so they will be able to get in for damage and discard one of our cards. Let's hope they discard the Blue Eyes, as that is the card doing the least for us right now. And it looks like they will discard the Cannon Soldier, unfortunately. They're going to add 2 Thunder Dragons to hand, and they can just tribute over our Lodgin to make it so that, you know, we don't get it back, which is pretty nice for them. So that is what they're going to do. They're going to tribute set the Thunder Dragon, set 1, pass back to us. Pot of Greed is pretty good. We are going to pot here. And we draw another Blue Eyes, which isn't the best. And we do draw a Muka Muka, so the Muka Muka can just attack over it. That is what we're going to try to do here. Unfortunately, they do have a trap hole. We're going to activate Swords, so that way they won't be able to get in any additional damage, and discard with Robin. And just pass back to them. If they do have Heavy Storm for this board, they will get rid of their Robin Goblin, so we're not the most worried about that. And they're just going to set another pass back to us. We draw a Flute, so now all we need is a Lord of D, and we've got a very good turn ahead of us. We're going to pass back to them. They're going to set another pass back to us. Sandgain is great. We now have a board clear, a way to find Lord of D, Flute of Summoning Dragon, and 2 dragons in hand. So we're feeling very good about this. We'll set the Sandgan, pass back to them, and they're just going to pass back to us. Swords will expire. We do draw a Waboku, so we could potentially just set the Waboku and pass. Might be the best option here. as we don't really know what their last back row is, so we don't necessarily want to play into it. But if it is not a Mirror Force or Waboku, then we could potentially just win the game here. So it might be worth going for. I don't know, it's kind of iffy. I think that in hindsight, I should have just set the Waboku, passed back to them, played it safe. But we are going to just go for the Dark Hole here instead. Grab Lord of D to hand, and we're just going to go for it. They're going to add a Witch of the Black Forest to hand, but we're going to summon out Lord of D. Flute out 2 Blue Eyes and try to get in for lethal damage. Maybe we should have summoned one of the Blue Eyes in defense to play around Mirror Force, but that wouldn't be lethal, so we're just going for lethal. We're going to attack in here for everything they've got, and unfortunately they do have a Mirror Force. So that is very rough for us. We will lose our entire board here, and now we're in a pretty bad spot. If this was a 7 tools, then we would have won the game there. So maybe that's an argument for replacing one of the trap holes with a 7 tools. Doesn't mean that the trap hole that we drew this game would have been a 7 tools in that case, but it's something to think about. Well, we're going to set the Waboku here, pass back to them. Now we don't really worry about taking damage as the Robin Goblin can't discard any more cards from our hand. They're going to bring out a Witch of the Black Forest, attack in for 11 here. We'll take the 11, and they'll set one, pass back to us. We draw a Witch. We're going to set the Witch, pass back to them. Let's see what they do. They're going to Raigeki our Witch away. And this is kind of rough because they do have Robin up. So they will be able to discard whatever we add to hand if we don't Waboku this next attack. And we don't want to be put into the position where we have to Waboku a Witch of the Black Forest attack. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to search the least useful card left in our deck, which happens to be Muka Muka, as we have no cards in hand. So even if they discard this away, then we're fine with that. They're going to bring out a Thunder Dragon, so that way they'll get the Witch Search. We could trap hole this, and I think in hindsight we actually should trap hole this, but we choose not to, saving it for the Dark Elf later that they add to hand. They will discard a Muka Muka here, very unfortunate. We do draw a Lodgin, so we are rewarded for not trap holing the Thunder Dragon. Looks like that's going to be fine, which is great. We know that they don't have any more Mirror Forces left, so we'll just be able to attack over the Thunder Dragon. Pass back to them. We've got the trap hole for the Dark Elf. Well, now we don't. They will heavy our board away. We will chain Waboku, but they'll chain 7 tools. So we will unfortunately be able to take damage here. They're going to Dark Hole away our Lodgin, summon out a Dark Elf, and hopefully they don't have a Reborn, but unfortunately it looks like they do. So that will be the end of the game here. Maybe if we had played a bit more conservatively with our Lord of D combo, then we would have been able to play this a bit differently. But we know that they have card destruction, and we didn't really want to lose our Lord of D combo that way. And, you know, we were just hoping that they didn't have a Mirror Force set, and unfortunately they did. At least we managed to get the combo to pop off there, which is very exciting, and I think that it's something that's a lot easier to do in Critter format than it was in Yugi-Kaiba format. Unfortunately, it does also have more punishes in Critter format. Mirror Force really messes up the big dragon play, so you really do need to have ways to deal with that before you go for it, unless you're in a desperate situation like I was there. In addition, I think more people are playing hand control things like Robin Goblin, as we saw in this game, and also card destruction, as we saw in the last game. And those hand control elements can really mess up your deck strategy, as if you do lose the combo pieces that you've been spending so long accruing, then it can really make your strategy suffer. But, you know, the format also has other tools besides just the recruiters that help the deck a lot. Counter traps are very nice. If you are able to set up a 7 tools on the turn that you do go for the big push, and basically assure your victory if your opponent's at a low enough life point threshold. Cannon Soldier also means that you can get additional damage in off of your big dragon board, so that's another nice little benefit as well. All in all, I think that this is a very fun deck. I don't think that it's like tier 1 or maybe even tier 2. It's still firmly janked just like it was in Yugi-Kaiba, but I think it has much improved from Yugi-Kaiba format. And it's much more easily to actually pull off the combo, even if you don't always win the games that you do it in. But that's going to be it for this video. If you have any suggestions for how I might change the deck, please let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.